In this section, we look at identity and access management. The root account will have full access to services within a cloud account. From within this account, you can enable, configure, and disable any service or resource. Having full control of any cloud environment is never recommended for any user for daily activities. In this situation, you have to follow the principle of least privilege. Least privilege reduces the potential impact where a security incident may occur involving a high privileged account. It limits financial loss from unauthorized service or resource creation and modification, and limits the risk of data loss. For example, consider if a user accidentally enables denial of service functionality on a personal account. This could prove to be a very expensive mistake. Alternatively, a root account user could access any virtual machine and obtain sensitive customer data, and then delete that data. As with the previous slide, the root account will have full access to services within a cloud account. From within this account, you can enable, configure, and disable any service or resource. Having full control of any cloud environment is never recommended for any user. In this situation, you have to follow the principle of least privilege. Root account access keys are especially important to control because these give programmatic access to a user to cloud environments. Programmatic access obviously has its benefits when it comes to cloud automation. From a security perspective, however, combined with an account with high privileges, this could mean a rapid escalation of service or resource modification at a pace far quicker than a human could achieve manually. For example, imagine a scenario where a script is used to create 5,000 virtual machines overnight while a security team is asleep. This could be very expensive for your organization. Equally true, all resources could be deleted through automation without the possibility of recovery. By default, accounts are protected by username and password. This information is what we know. So long as the password remains confidential and only known to you, then the account should not be compromised. However, as soon as the password is exposed, there are no additional safeguards. For the root account of a cloud service provider, this is not good practice to only use a password. This is where MFA, multi-factor authentication, comes in, and is a secondary challenge to confirm the identity is valid. So in addition to something you know, MFA is something you have. In this course, Google Authentication is used as an app installed on a mobile device. The app generates a new token every 60 seconds so that it cannot be predicted or guessed. Enabled MFA on root accounts will require you to enter a username, password, and the current token generated from the MFA device. With MFA enabled, for an account to be compromised, the threat actor would now need the username, password, and guess the correct MFA code. This requirement can be implemented for any user and is not restricted to root access. More information on Google Authenticator can be found in course resources. As users are onboarded onto a cloud environment, certainly in the early development stages, when an enterprise is just adopting cloud or as part of cloud transformation, there may be instances where users are added and over time the accounts become unused. But these unused accounts still have the access and privileges. These types of account can vary greatly, from developers requiring access to build a solution for a short period of time, contractors wanting to support a solution, or even administrators with high privileges. And in all enterprises, employees will join an organization, they may transfer to another department, or leave the organization entirely. Therefore, any accounts that are inactive for a period of time should at the very least be disabled. For example, what you do not want to happen is for an employee to leave the company and then 2 months later connect to cloud services they are no longer authorized to access. In such examples, even the most innocent actions where ex-employees accidentally connect due to saved credentials in their personal devices, this will cause unnecessary security incidents to be created. Unused and inactive accounts should be disabled as a matter of policy. The following is similar to the previous inactive user scenario, in that we want to minimize the overall footprint of access to your cloud environment. The only difference here is, instead of users, we are dealing with access keys. Access keys pose a little more of a challenge, because while access keys may relate to a user, they may also relate to automated processes and be attached to service accounts. For example, if a solution is developed and hosted in the cloud, that solution may need to perform many automated tasks, sending email, processing data, and so on. And these tasks may happen on a regular basis and unattended. The access keys will often grant the solution with the necessary rights to access things like email or data. There are clear risks here with automation, because the scale of damage can be far greater using automated processes when compared to a human doing manual actions. With that in mind, we need access keys to be tightly controlled. They must have a purpose and must be documented. If any access keys appear to be unused, you must make sure the keys will no longer be used and then disable as appropriate. Uncontrolled management of access keys will almost always lead to a security incident. Access keys do have a habit of being found in places not intended to be. For example, it's not uncommon for keys to be found on desktops of developers' home computers, or even public on the internet using the various source code repositories, such as GitHub. When access keys are saved to the internet, then this will lead to cloud resources being abused beyond their intended purpose, and potentially leading to data compromise. Passwords have been with us for a long time, and it's something most of us have to use on a daily basis. Certainly if you're doing this course right now, you've used at least one password, and I hope that password was reasonably complex and unique, because password policy has been a recurring challenge within cybersecurity. While passwords are not the only layer of security, and some may argue are outdated, they are nonetheless important. The first question you may ask is, how is a password policy defined? Well, this is often up to the business to determine, and it does vary from organisation to organisation, where complexity may be high to none. If you have no password policy, then this creates unnecessary challenges, including but not limited to employees reusing the same password for years, to passwords that are easy to guess, or perhaps the worst scenario is the use of default passwords. So, you should have a password policy containing upper and lowercase combinations, minimum password length, and expire passwords after a period of time, just to name a few requirements. It's very easy when creating a new user to add all permissions, especially in new environments or during solution development, when the full scope of a user may not be fully understood. For example, when creating an admin role, it's typically not required for that admin to inherit all permissions just because they're called admin. In fact, the permissions need to fulfill only what's needed and no more than that. If you permit excessive permissions for users, then users may be able to perform actions outside of their responsibility. In such examples, this can include users accidentally destroying data or impacting service availability. The worst case, this may lead to accounts that are compromised to be used as pivot points, where the excessive privileges are used to gain access to and pivot from one system to another within your organisation. In any case, this should be avoided. When defining and understanding your user base and their responsibilities, it's best avoided to assign policies to users. This method may work with a small number of accounts, but it's not scalable when compared against an example user base of, say, 10,000 users in an enterprise. In an enterprise, you should have specific groups or roles, for example, developers. The developer role would inherit specific permissions, maybe the ability to read certain folders, but will not have any administrative permissions. If a user is added to the developer role, that user inherits the developer permissions. Users removed from the developer role would lose their rights. This makes managing roles of users far more manageable and scalable. Any user not assigned to any roles or groups should have very limited to no privileges.